Welcome to another Veterans Network podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Kennedy, co-founder and co-director of Veterans Network. Today I'm joined with the other two co-founders and co-directors, Will and Steve. And today we're going to be discussing some recent topics of conversation that have been coming up recently in the press and on our social media feeds. And the first one being the Veterans ID card. There's been a bit of a mixed sort of feedback about that in our social media recently. Some people say it's a good thing, some people say it's a bad thing. I'd say it's quite a fair divide down the middle. Personally, I just don't see what the benefits are of having a V on a driving licence, but that's what we're here to discuss today. So we're going to speak with the co-directors, Steve and Will, now. Steve, obviously, what do you think about this whole V for veterans on a driving licence?
Probably pretty much the same as the community, really. I'm kind of divided. I think there's some good elements to it, and there's things that I'd be quite concerned about. I think at the minute there's a lot of lack of clarity on where on how basically it's going to work. For me, I think it's become clear that the government are starting to listen in terms of about recognising veterans. Whether or not this is the right way of going about it, I'm not sure. The biggest thing for me, I suppose, is the fact that the idea behind it is that it's going to give better access to specialist services such as priority healthcare and housing and retail discounts. But for me, it just seems a little bit of a duplication of what we already have.
But is it, like, has this been confirmed, like, in the media? Are we going to see these sort of priorities, these sort of discounts linked in with this ID card, this driving licence now? Are we going to walk into the NHS, like into a hospital or doctors, and produce this driving licence with the V on it? And do you reckon we'll just skip straight to the front, or?
I really don't know. Again, that's what it comes down to, that lack of clarity. I mean, all that's been confirmed is, it's just been reported. It's all speculation. The idea behind it was that is to give veterans that access to the specialist services with housing and retail discounts. But I feel like we already have that in place. If you want to get a railway card, for instance, you can get one. If you want discounts in retail, you've got the discount, the defence discount services. So for me, I don't really understand. I'd be quite concerned at how, basically having a V on your driving licence, in terms of security threat. Is it a security threat or isn't it? Is it going to be something that gives?
Well, I know where you're coming from. Like, with the current sort of threat at the moment in the UK, with the sort of terrorists living on our doorstep, and let's face it, veterans and armed forces, and let's go back to Lee Rigby. I hate to bring it up, but that's exactly what happened. They targeted a person of the armed forces because he was wearing a Help for Heroes t-shirt, I believe, wasn't he wearing a Help for Heroes t-shirt? And they targeted him and slaughtered him there in front of everyone. And I'm sure now, with the veterans identification coming on the ID card now, you know what blokes are like, going out on the piss and losing their wallets. So people will, the enemy, so to speak, or these people that wish harm upon us, will be able to find this address with our picture on it, go there and just basically wait for you to come home. Stalk you, do whatever. I mean, it's unimaginable what they would do. Will, what do you think about this whole Veterans ID card?
Well, I agree with what you both said. For me, there's far too many questions around it. They haven't really said what it is. It's been more of sort of a throwaway comment than an announcement. They purely announced that they're going to have a V on a driving licence and haven't really backed it up with anything else. if you think about what you use your driving licence for, you go abroad, you hire a car, first thing they want is a copy of your driving licence. Straight away, they know you're a veteran, which can lead to security issues. Also, I'm sure most veterans have had a scenario where they've been discriminated against because they're a veteran or serving. Most people use that driving licence as a form of ID. If you don't want somebody to know you're a veteran, which some people don't, and there's nothing wrong with that, for me it's just flagging up you as a person. As you know, you enter a nightclub, a lot of doormen have this perception that veterans, soldiers are troublemakers. And for me, it's a bit like the Armed Forces Covenant. They announced that, they said the benefits, but they haven't really implemented it properly. And there just seems to be a lot more problems with it than there actually are benefits. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, your mic's a little bit scratchy there, mate. But yeah, so far, I'm struggling to see any positives from it. It sort of feels like it's just a throwaway sort of, oh yeah, we're giving you acknowledgement, and we're making you count in society. It's a double-edged sword, really, from what I can see from it. And until we have any sort of actual further details sort of announced about what will come with the V on your ID card, it's like you say, it's kind of like a throwaway sort of. It's not like
there was a comment that somebody put on Facebook, I believe it was last week, and they basically said that obviously when the Army announced the redundancy scheme, they also announced the Armed Forces Covenant as sort of I suppose you'd call it a back rub, or sort of a positive to take the media away from what they were doing. And, you know, perhaps this is a start to something else. Perhaps there's about to be another big announcement.
Well, maybe this was because it came out just before Christmas, right? And then after the New Year, a few other things came out, and like you say, this could potentially have just been a buffer, sort of soften the blow. And it seems now, which we will talk about later in the show, but with the proposal to merge the Royal Marine Commandos with the Paras, personally, this is my personal opinion, what a crock of shit. And these new army recruitment adverts, they're struggling. So that's contradicting anyway. So 1 minute they're saying they're struggling to recruit, so they're trying a new avenue of approach on recruiting a different demographic of people within our society to join the armed forces. But then, you know, a week later they announce, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to be merging the Royal Marine Commandos and the Powers. But underneath that, by the way, there will be 14,000 jobs cut. So it's two contradicting things there, and I feel like the Veterans ID card was like a kind of to buffer that. Wouldn't you agree, Steve?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you know, for me, it's just also having a veteran's details on a database. That concerns me a lot, especially within the DVLA. DVLA are well known for selling personal information to private companies. But again, it goes back to that security risk as well. But it also goes into that: what is their agenda? What is the government's agenda? Is it to recognise veterans, or is it some other agenda? You know, for the DVLA to make money. You know, who's going to pay for this card as well? You know, is it going to come out of the veterans' pocket? Is it going to be free? I mean, you know, we're talking about 2.5 million veterans here. Even if it was cost £1 for a card, it's still, we're talking, you know, a lot of money. Where's it going to come from? I don't know. I really don't know what they're trying to achieve. It's almost like they're trying to relax the veteran community, trying to win them over by offering them something. But for me, I don't think it is. I think it's having the total opposite effect.
So, someone stated in a comment last week on Facebook, a little bit more of like a conspiracy theory to it, that it's linked in with obviously the DVLA's database, and it's like a method in which they can keep tabs and keep track of veterans within society, so it stops us from dropping off radar. But having said that, on top of that though, what just popped into my head then is, what about veterans that don't drive? What about these guys? What are they gonna have?
When the Prime Minister made when she basically said that this was coming out, they did say that they were going to be issued a separate card if they don't drive. Okay. So again, how many different cards are they going to have? You're going to have veterans cutting around with a driving licence with a V on it, a Defence Discount Service card. There's obviously other independent companies that are making money from creating discount cards, linking in with other retail services. So, there's no consistency there, is there? There's just loads of different veterans cutting around with different sets of ID.
I'm gonna need a separate wallet, another wallet just to put all these cards in. It's just mental. All right, well, I mean, there's lots more we can discuss about the Veterans ID card, but at the moment we're still kind of, it's like a grey area. No one really knows the details. It's all sort of skeptical opinions of that at the moment. But us as veterans, like Will, what would you say at the moment? What was your summary of the Veterans ID card?
I'd say I've still got an open mind, but I think they do need to give us a complete outline of exactly what this card is. For example, the benefits, and I also think we should have the option not to have it on our driving licence and actually have a separate card, because I believe that the issues it could cause having a little V on your driving licence, I think it opens you up to discrimination for one, and it could be a large security issue as well.
I think that's a good point you've made there. I think there definitely needs to be some kind of vote or something. I think that's in a world, in a country which is where we live in democracy, we should have the opportunity. The veteran community, and I think that's definitely a place for the Veterans Network, and other kind of networks as well, where the veterans need to have a voice on issues like this and should be able to vote for where the tax money's going. Like if it's coming out of the taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
If it's an independent choice, then granted, people can do it or not. But if it's to work, obviously majority have to opt in, or we don't bother with it.
Absolutely. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if they actually just asked us? Like, all you have to do is an online vote. You don't have to do a whole vote like for Brexit. You could just do an online vote, put it out to these veteran organisations like ourselves, like Veterans Network and X4 Plus and whatever, and just say, this is what we're proposing. What do you as a veteran community think of this? I mean, that leads me on to other things though. I mean, let's talk about now the new army adverts, a very, very controversial subject at the moment in the forefront of the media. It's weird, and I've got many mixed opinions on this, some of which I might have to bite my tongue because I'm quite passionate about what the British Army should stand for. But again, we've got to keep an open mind because there's veterans within the community that actually think these army adverts are the way forward. So some saying it's a soft approach, it's making the army look weak, it's making the army look soft, but others are saying it's promoting our diversity, and that's what's important at the moment because we're quite a diverse society. Steve, what do you think about these new army adverts?
Yeah, it's controversial for me. £1.3 million of what they spent on these type of adverts and what the message that they're sending out. At the end of the day, what they're trying to achieve here is obviously to target a minority, and the people who they're trying to target is not necessarily the right people. Not saying they're not the right people, but they're not necessarily the people that want to join. At the end of the day, you need to want to join. You can't necessarily target an individual type of person. For me, I don't think there is an issue across the board with diversity. I think we've been diverse for a number of years. I've been involved within the armed forces for 12 years. The fact, they're talking about, is it okay to be gay in the army? Well, since I've been in the army, I've never seen any issues with. People have been quite openly gay. We're not talking about the last sort of 50 years where it was illegal to be gay in the army. I feel like we've passed that stage now. I don't know whether they're targeting questions that they found, it has been asked, from your average Joe Civvy who's not quite sure, who's interested but not sure. But I don't know. I just feel that the army's not connected to society as opposed to society connected to the army. I don't think the army know. I think it's the army that's the issue. I don't think it's who they're necessarily targeting. And I think we've got, and again, it's just causing such issues within the forces, because this pro-discrimination is just causing uproar, and it's not needed. It really isn't.
Will, would you agree that maybe it's the army that's the issue, that we're struggling with recruitment at the moment, and maybe they should look at the new army adverts now, and say actually it's not who you're targeting in the society, because the army is known for being a diverse, as people come from all backgrounds, like you said, Steve. But is it the army now? I mean, the army can't hide anymore, and there's certain things that used to go on maybe that you would just get suppressed and it would never be out in the media. But now, because of social media, you've got blokes that don't just chunter behind closed doors with each other or moan about stuff. They're now moaning and chuntering on social media, which is being aired to those that are potential recruits, and they're thinking, oh God, these are actually blokes that are actually serving, and they're saying all this about the army. Why the hell would I want to join that? Maybe they need to put suppression on social media rather than putting loads of money into advertisement. Will, what's your views on it?
Well, I agree with Steve that I think the army's always been very diverse and open. I mean, we recruited from the Commonwealth for God knows how many years. If I think back to when I turned up at my battalion, there was loads of different people from loads of different cultures. And as Steve said, I've always been aware of gay people as well within the army. And I believe that sometimes perhaps the media hype it up to sell newspapers. Unfortunately, we do live in a society where negative news does seem to spread very quickly, so I feel these little issues do turn into big issues. I know a lot of people currently serving who have seen these new adverts and they're embarrassed by them. If we're talking about retention, I think you'll probably see quite a lot of people signing off over the next sort of weeks and months due to the new way that the army's looking at bringing people in. And I think there's other things that they need to be concentrating on, to be honest. That's my opinion anyway.
Last year, they failed to meet the targets because, they recruited 8,000 people and yet 9,000 people left. So maybe this £1.3 million should be sort of, looked at, we should be looking at more about retention as opposed to recruitment and targeting minority groups.
I think the government have a problem with staff retention sort of all over the board. There was a report on BBC News today saying that 33,000 nurses leave the NHS every year. And it makes you wonder, is it an army problem? Is it a navy problem? Is it an RAF problem? Or is it a government problem? Have the government not quite moved with the times? That's what I personally believe.
Yeah, I agree that this, this targeting individuals within recruitment is among the public services, uniformed services, It's happening in the police. It's happening in the fire service, where they're targeting minority groups. It's all about numbers. It's all about percentages and ticking boxes, and it's not necessarily about the right people for the right jobs. You know, it almost seems like they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They're just trying whatever they can think of.
It certainly feels like they're clutching at straws. I think there's other issues around it that, you know, are the reasons for them struggling with recruitment. First and foremost, in my opinion, is the amount of homeless veterans that are out there at the moment, those that are struggling with mental health issues and just sort of slipping through the net of support that we do have there. I mean, there is a lot of support there for those, but there's some that slip through the net, and, you know, this whole lack of support, this weak support structure for veterans, I think is another deterrent, and why people think, well, what, you know. And another thing on top of that is these legal investigations onto our troops. You know, people that have been over in Iraq and Afghan and basically, in my opinion, been doing their job, what they were sent there to do, and then come home to find themselves under investigation for, you know, war crimes and that, which is just ridiculous in some cases. But what that, in the eyes of those that are thinking of joining the army, like potential recruits, would look at that and go, geez, I'm not going to join the army. Like, look, you get stabbed in the back. The minute you leave, you're on your ass and you're getting prosecuted for doing your job. Do you reckon that's a factor?
I think everything that's in the media regarding the armed forces is just appears to be negative. And I'm not surprised that recruitment is on, you know, at an all-time low, because it's not selling itself.
So effectively,
the armed forces has a very negative stigma around it at the moment, and I honestly don't think the MOD know how to solve it or what to do.
Is it?
I mean, when we joined, like, social media wasn't as effective as it is now. You know, with a number of different pages and groups where, you know, serving personnel and veterans can vent out the issues that are going on within the service. You know, any civvy can sort of log on to them pages and have a look, you know, and can see where, you know, that so many people are unhappy about certain elements. You know, like squaddies are well known for chuntering about everything. You know, even if they were in heaven, they would be chuntering. And I think, you know, but the civvy, the local civvy, who doesn't know really anything about what it's like, you know, the life in the army, what it's like, they're not going to see it that way, are they? They're going to be massively put off. I think a lot of it's to do with the fact that there is no operational tours at the moment. I mean, when I left school, I joined the army. Part of the reasons for that is because I wanted to go away and serve, and I think where perhaps the army doesn't offer that anymore, certainly not on a large scale, that probably does have an effect as well.
Yeah, because it's not really, I mean, yeah, okay, it's a career, you get a few qualifications out of it maybe, some people might be laughing now when
is it a career anymore? That's the question. You look at all these people that got made redundant.
Yeah,
I know a couple of them. As far as they were concerned, they were going to spend their whole career in the armed forces.
Yeah.
I just don't think people see it as a safe job anymore, which, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's true.
So
there's nothing safe or secure about it, especially obviously what we're going to be talking about next. When if they're talking about merging the Paras and the Marines, they're also looking at reducing the forces by another 14,000 people. I mean, but yet they're still actively recruiting and smashing loads of money into recruiting, and yet again there's speculation in the media that we're going to be losing another 14,000 troops.
That doesn't make sense though, does it? I mean, like what?
It doesn't make sense. There's no clarity and consistency across the board about any subject.
Yeah, it's almost like everyone at the top of the MOD and in the armed forces has got their thumb up their arse. and hopefully they're listening to this, because this might well be that kick up the arse. The thing with this, them announcing or proposing that they're going to merge the paras with the Royal Marine Commandos, in my eyes, is just ridiculous. I mean, you got Royal Marine Commandos. They storm beaches from the sea. They're frogmen, and then you got the airborne, the paras, who fly out the sky. It's two different entities.
It's a bit like asking a gopher to be a seagull, isn't it? Really. Vice versa. It's the simplest way to put it. I think if you put that idea to some of the people that have served, particularly some of the older generation, I'm sure you'd have some very interesting comments.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will probably be upset about it as well.
Well, all that military history, will that go with it? Like, will the military history just fade out, and it will soon be like paras? What was that? Or Royal Marine Commandos? What was that? And it's just the paras and Royal Marine Commandos. They have I know it's at the end of the day, when shit hits the fan, they're there to support each other, but they don't get on really, do they? They're both elite units that are trying to be elite. One's elite in the army, one's elite in the navy. And they're sort of
that's why it works. I mean, that healthy rivalry is required. I think that's why they are the top two.
Yeah.
Because they're continuously trying to outdo each other in a positive way to prove that they are the best. And I think that's what steps them up. Equally, they're both two different specialised, amphibious and airborne, but they complement each other, and you can't have one without the other. You need them both. And that, we've proved that. I mean, I think there'll be more collaboration in the future. I can see when they're talking about merging, I don't agree with it, but I think there should be more collaboration, like, what they've done with, like, the SFSG, and I think that's just the way the future is going, especially with, like, NATO operations and the way that's going with that. I mean, in the future, everything's going to be NATO-led, and I think, that's probably why. I don't think for 1 second it's going to happen. For 1 second, I think it's going to get thrown out. I think Monday they're talking about there's going to be a conversation in the House of Commons about it.
Well, we've got a petition that's sort of pending at the moment, because if they do think about putting this together, I feel strongly on a personal level that this is a wrong move. They shouldn't be doing it. So I've decided that Veterans Network will be launching a petition on it. It's pending, and I hope that it comes through, because when it does, then we'll see the true opinions and views of both sides, the paras and the Royal Marine Commandos. We'll see what they have to say about it.
That would be an interesting podcast.
Yeah, it would be interesting if we could get. This is a formal invitation to anyone that's listening. We want one para and one Royal Marine Commando one at the same time to discuss this.
And about 50 bodyguards.
Yeah, we'll keep them on the phone. We'll keep them separated. But I'm definitely interested to hear it from the horse's mouth and see what those guys think about it. I mean, it sounds like they're going down this whole American route. Like, you got your Rangers, you got your US Navy and your US Army, and it's. Will, you said to me before offline, you said something about the Army 2020, and this is like a push towards that.
Yeah, there's basically I haven't read a great deal about it, but from what I understand, the Army 2020 is sort of a future vision that they've sort of made, and from what I believe, it actually involves scrapping pretty much all regiments, and basically merging units together and making them into sort of brigade strength, and those brigades would rotate between, for example, rest, readiness and deployment. Very similar to how the United States operates at the moment.
Is it because at the moment there's quite a bit of emphasis on NATO, and I've actually noticed a NATO advert recently. Is this a step towards minimizing our forces, like stripping them all down so it's bare minimum. So at the moment we're already at our lowest ever. And is it because we're trying to create one large army under NATO, like with all these, you see us doing lots of training at the moment with other foreign forces? Are they trying to create one Western army or something? Or is that?
I believe you're going down that road. Yeah. I believe so. I think that's definitely the plan for the future, and and I think that's why more sort of NATO operations and exercises is occurring now than ever before. And I think we'll always be, us in the USA will always be leading in majority of things. But yeah, I think there's a huge emphasis on other nations now becoming involved in everything that we do. And I think that's why we can afford to downsize to a certain element, to a certain extent, and give more responsibility to other nations to take control of the warfighting and such. And probably we'll be more focusing on what we specialise in the best, probably, by air and sea, which is what we do better than any other NATO country, I believe, apart from obviously the USA.
Dare I say it, it's going to be interesting if that is the route they're going down, and we come out of the EU. We'll see what relationships diminish or form there. But, we're only 3 or 4 weeks into the new year, 2018, and it's already kick-started with some interesting shifts, interesting changes, to say the least. That pretty much wraps it up. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of this. So we'll keep you guys updated on the petition for the hashtag No Merge, as I'm calling it, because of this, the Royal Marine Commandos merging with the Paras. Let's not let that happen. But yeah, Will and Steve, co-directors of Veterans Network, thanks for joining us today. And we'll see you all soon.